bada bing. Now, let's put
additional information on exactly what President Trump could be speaking about. Actually, you can probably see the motorcade is leaving right behind me now. President Trump and the beast is starting to make its way out of the White House as we await more details there. But new reporting coming out from Fox News that President Trump is going to call on lawmakers to immediately fund the Department of Homeland Security, as this speech marks one of the first State of the Union addresses during a partial government shutdown. As you well know, we are heading into next week, which could mark the first missed paycheck for workers in the Department of Homeland Security. Well, domestic policy is, of course, front and center, and we have been talking about affordability issues all day today on Bloomberg Television and radio. I will point out foreign policy as well, as we learn that Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S. is also expected to attend the State of the Union tonight, as we get more information on those expected attendees. Kaylee, as you all know, there has been mounting frustration from this White House when it comes to negotiations between the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia, as we now have marked 4 years of the war.
All right, Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall live at the White House, where we are expecting the president to depart and make his way toward the Capitol any moment now. We will, of course, bring that to you as it happens. We also want to bring you some excerpts from the president's speech that we have just received as we turn to our political panel this evening. Bloomberg Politics contributors Rick Davis, who's a Republican strategist and partner at Stoneport Capital, is alongside Democratic analyst Jeannie Shanzano, Democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. I'm just going to read out the first excerpt, Rick, that we have received regarding the president's speech. He's planning to say, tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. We well know that polls show that America is not necessarily feeling a turnaround, at least economically, at this time from the president. Is that the wrong message to be sending?
Well, I think that if he recognizes that the American public isn't feeling the economic progress that he's claiming, I think that's a step in the right direction for him to actually have something what we would refer to as empathy. So I think that's actually a plus. And look, I mean, there's no question that this administration has accomplished a lot. It's been an incredibly intense year. He came out of the blocks, you know, doing things that nobody really expected. Hundreds and hundreds of executive orders, massive pieces of legislation. By his sensibilities, this has been probably one of the most productive years of a president. You can then go to the public and say, but has it helped you? And there are a lot of questions around that.
Well, and that's what the president will be trying to speak to tonight. I would note that leaving the White House, we just saw the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. We are expecting President Trump himself and the First Lady, Melania Trump, to depart any moment now to get in the motorcade and make their way to the Capitol. It should be a short journey, and once he arrives, he'll, of course, be preparing to make his way into the House chamber, into the dais where he will give the speech. Jeannie, to go back to that excerpt I just read and what Rick was just saying about having accomplished much, perhaps, that is not yet resonating with the electorate. And I would note President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have just walked out of the White House. They are making their way into their vehicle now and will begin the journey to the Capitol. So we are about half an hour away from the slated start time of the president's speech, and he is beginning this trip now. Jeannie, as he does so, as he makes this ride, which again should only take about 10 minutes when you're traveling with a presidential motorcade, you get to skip through all traffic. How do you think he is preparing to try to make the case that his predecessor, Joe Biden, tried and arguably failed to do, that the country is in better shape than you all seem to think it is?
Yeah, and I'm just looking, Kaylee, at the motorcade you were just describing, and I think we forget, you know, we can't underscore enough, I should say, the stakes to which Donald Trump finds himself as he gives this speech. I mean, he is facing the reality of either a continuation of his second term, which he would prefer, or potentially having Democrats take over the House. And what is he facing then? As he himself has said, he is facing investigations and potential impeachment. So to me, I'm trying to think of a time when the stakes were higher as a president left the White House to head to the Capitol to give this kind of speech. And of course, what the president is trying to do, to your point, is the same thing Joe Biden was trying to do, which is to convince the American public that he is leading them down the right economic path. But it is terribly difficult to convince people of something they're not feeling. And what I've heard from people behind the scenes is that he is going to say, we're headed in the right direction and we are headed towards the best 3 economic years in this country's history. And that would be very much in keeping with a Donald Trumpian, if I can say that, type of message. But again, convincing a very skeptical and uneasy American public of that is an uphill battle for certain.
Well, and it's remarkable, as we just saw the president getting into his motorcade, and he's making his way actively now to the Capitol, Rick, protected by the United States Secret Service, which of course falls under the Department of Homeland Security, which currently is not funded. It's technically shut down because there is an impasse between the White House and congressional Democrats over reforms to ICE that would unlock the funding. We know President Trump, according to these speech excerpts, is planning to address that. He's going to say, Democrats in this chamber have cut off all funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Tonight, I am demanding the full.
Okay, I'm going to go get a smoke and a coffee, and I will be back before the market opens. I also have to spam out the link to this. So, coffee, smoke. I will be back in less than 10 minutes.
I mentioned it earlier. This is the first time that a president of the United States has ever gone to the well of the House of Representatives for a State of the Union when a portion of his government has been shut down without budget authority. This is pretty extraordinary. And we have a list of extraordinary things that are happening today, and this is not one to miss, because even though 90% of the Department of Homeland Security is covered under essential personnel, which means no matter whether they're getting paid or not, they got to show up. TSA workers, and others in the Coast Guard and FEMA. The reality is this is as much importance symbolically as it is practically. We've had situations where TSA workers hadn't been paid for months. In fact, in the last shutdown that was historically long. So at the end of the day, I think it's important, but we'll see whether or not he can actually get momentum from Congress to actually settle this score.
Indeed, we will. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzana will be staying with us throughout tonight's special coverage as we take a look in the House chamber. The Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, is now entering. Just behind him, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, and Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, are entering the chamber as well. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, already at the dais, having called the House into order. So we're seeing now some of the higher profile entries of some of the most senior elected officials in the United States as we await the president, who again has departed the White House and is currently en route to the Capitol, preparing to give the State of the Union speech. Other senators behind the leadership, John Barrasso, Dick Durbin, are behind them as well, as they are slowly making their way down the hall, or the passageway there, Joe. A lot of hands being shaken. You, of course, have seen a lot of their entrances from Statuary Hall, and I'm sure there is a lot of activity there now, Joe Matthew.
Yeah, Kaylee, everyone you see walking into the House chamber, J.D. Vance there, and of course the Senate Majority and Minority Leader behind him, have all walked through Statuary Hall where we are. So we get kind of a red carpet, if you will, before they enter the House chamber. Now that the Senate and leadership have made their way into the chamber, a number of members of the House have. We're actually going to be looking very closely, and I suspect this room I'm in is going to get very quiet when Supreme Court justices walk through, because there's, of course, a lot of question about how the president is going to handle them or treat them or not, based on the ruling last Friday on his tariff regime. He said that they were an embarrassment to the nation and their families, those who voted against the president's tariffs. So that could bring a bit of early drama here in the speech. We'll also see top brass from the Pentagon here. And Kaylee, we're waiting to hear about a designated survivor as well. I can tell you, we saw Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, make an early arrival here. And as you can see, if you're with us on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube, Speaker of the House is already in the rostrum. To be clear, this is his party. It might be the president's speech, but the Speaker runs the show here, makes the invitations, and this is his joint session of Congress tonight.
Indeed, it was the Speaker who invited the president to make this address.
That's right.
Indeed, and Joe Matthew will continue the coverage live from the Capitol, as I will continue here in our Washington, D.C. studios, where I'm joined by Bloomberg's Mario Parker, Jeff Mason, and Bloomberg opinion columnist Nia Malika Henderson, who are all still with me as we watch the Vice President, J.D. Vance, completing his journey down the aisle as he goes to take a seat next to the Speaker of the House. They, of course, will be the ones flanking President Donald Trump when he arrives to give this speech. It's noteworthy, though, as we see, Jeff, some of the most senior leadership of the United States Senate and of course, the vice president making their way into the chamber, that not all of Congress is going to be attending this. We should note that there are actually dueling events being held by Democrats in somewhat of a protest of the president's speech.
Which is emblematic, really, of the politics of this city right now, right? I mean, it is not a city where both parties are working very closely together. It's a very divided town. It's a very divided electorate. And I think that we will see some of that actually reflected in President Trump's speech as well. I have heard from at least one source that the president is likely to go very aggressively against Democrats in his rhetoric tonight. And that happens in speeches, but it's not necessarily in line with the more bipartisan approach that some previous presidents have taken on a historic night like a State of the Union address.
And as the Vice President, J.D. Vance, goes up to take his seat, Nia, it's worth noting that the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, at least according to reports, has told his members to stay in line tonight. If you're going to attend, make sure you do so in silence. Is the rule for Democrats here essentially don't cause a scene?
Yeah, essentially. And, you know, there have been occasions where members have caused scenes.
Like Al Green last year?
Al Green last year, and I believe he was escorted out and was shouting at the president as he was speaking. Hakeem Jeffries, who feels like he's got the gavel, right, in hand possibly in November, wants to present a party that the American people will elect, right, in November, wants to look like a governing sort of mature party against the backdrop of the president, who I imagine will be sort of an angry figure, because that is who this president is, particularly when he's going off script. I'm sure he's going to berate Democrats on and off script. He'll have a number of folks in the audience who will sort of speak to some of his policy preferences. So, yeah, you know, we're going to see, I think, some Democrats who are wearing white, right? That's been a tradition as well. But listen, this is going to be a very long speech. I think it's going to be a lot of what we've already heard from this president. We sort of go in with these expectations of what this president should do, and he always disappoints.
Well, as Nia's speaking, Mario, of this idea that there may be some ire directed at various groups within the chamber, sure, Democrats may be one. What about the justices of the United States Supreme Court, who are literally going to be seated directly before him after ruling his use of tariffs, at least the IEEPA authority, is illegal?
Yeah, we'll see whether or not Susie Wiles and the rest of the staff are able to keep the president from some of his instincts there. We saw him last shout, obviously, at the tariff ruling that he was disappointed in last Friday as well. If you think back to last year at the State of the Union address, the MAGA sphere, if you will, the far right, a lot of them were really reading the body language of some of those justices at that time. At that point in time, Amy Coney Barrett was coming under scrutiny as well. So we'll see whether or not Trump can resist throwing some red meat to his base, but also some of his impulses as well.
Well, and Joe, you've called our attention to it several times already this evening, that you're waiting to see walking through Statuary Hall, the justices of the court themselves. We have not seen them yet, but the members of the Senate are continuing to make their way into the chamber.
Yeah, it's actually, there's quite a crowd in here. Having done this for a couple of years together, Kaylee, we haven't seen this many people lining this sort of red carpet entrance where the velvet ropes are lined up and where lawmakers and now anticipating Supreme Court justices are making their way into the chamber. Lawmakers are supposed to be in there and seated by now. Usually we see reporters taking their positions just like we are at Bloomberg, but there is a line of folks waiting to see the justices enter, and I'm sure you're going to see a lot of those pictures and see that video over the course of the evening here. What the president does and says when he passes by them in those front rows is the big question right now. But we've got a bit of a logjam. If you're watching us on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube, lawmakers are literally in line. Senators are kind of just waiting to get themselves into the chamber. Then they'll all be waiting to shake hands potentially with the president here, Kaylee, because that's going to be a long walk for him. Right after the top of the hour, the Sergeant at Arms will say, "Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States," that iconic line that will begin the procession down to the rostrum. And the president will be looking closely to see who is gaming to get in line to talk to the president and who he wants to see as well, culminating with his stand before the Supreme Court justices just a short time from
nothing's
now.
coming through my headphones. So
well, it's remarkable, Joe, that we just saw two members of the so-called Gang of Eight making their way into the chamber. The Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, Senator Tom Cotton there as well, who, of course, are read into some of the highest level intelligence that the U.S. government can provide. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was meeting
every time I get in here, every time I open up this damn OBS, there's always some funky setting that's screwing with me. So apparently I don't need to. Apparently I don't need to listen in the headphones because they ain't doing nothing for me anyway. And I want to be aware of. Let's see. Maybe output.
Be on the table when it comes to a potential deal. There seems to be disagreements about the future of Iran's enrichment of uranium, as well as whether or not some of those other key issues will be put on the table, as we have heard repeatedly from U.S. officials like Secretary of State Marco Rubio that the U.S. wants to see Iran's ballistic missile program, as well as its support for proxy militia groups, folded into any potential deal as well. Kaylee, it's going to be something to watch as President Trump takes the lectern on Capitol Hill, whether or not we get a sense from him on where he feels diplomacy stands, because we have repeatedly heard from this president that he is, quote, indirectly involved in these talks.
All right, Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall at the White House. Thank you so much. And I would note that the pool of reporters traveling with the White House has told us that the president and his motorcade have indeed arrived at the Capitol.
All right. I don't know what Bloomberg is talking about.
Good morning. Welcome to Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. I'm paying the price physically for this today. Wednesday night was one of big game vibes for yours truly, with earnings releases out from Salesforce and NVIDIA. I think
we can assume the bell is open.
Staying up all night and reading NVIDIA's newly filed 131-page annual report. I also rewatched Salesforce's new earnings show, hosted by co-founder and CEO Mark Benioff, in front of a black podcast mic. I then reread the 145-page Salesforce annual report filed last March. So I am here on your screen with just under 30 minutes of sleep and pumped up on a lot of caffeine. Here's where I come out on both of these really
Why are they airing the State of the Union address on
what is
Bloomberg?
not to like here? NVIDIA has almost $60 billion left on its stock repurchase plan. It has about $11 billion paper gain on its investment in struggling Intel. Current quarter revenue outlook is $6 billion ahead of consensus estimates. Revenue growth is reaccelerating, and profit margins are sequentially improving. Founder and CEO Jensen Huang served up this bullish comment as well on the call.
Bitcoin
in this new world of AI
still around the 68 mark, which I'm happy to see that. And of course,
without
Coinbase will be up.
There's no way to generate tokens. Without tokens, there's no way to grow revenues. So in this new world of AI, compute equals revenues.
NVIDIA Nvidia still
Hell
up
yeah, Jensen.
1%.
On Salesforce, what is to actually like here? I mean, I didn't really like any of this quarter. Current quarter revenue guidance is slightly below estimates. Full year profit guidance is back-end weighted. Full year profit guidance is likely being propped up by stock repurchases or a new $50 billion stock buyback plan. The stock is getting hit despite said new massive stock buyback plan. And then we have Mark Benioff writing off the software stock crash on his earnings show.
You know, this is not our first SaaS-pocalypse. We have been through many SaaS-pocalypses. You know, I remember the horrible SaaS-pocalypse of 2020 when not only the software industry
finance
was dying,
sector's
but we were all
doing all right.
dying. But we made it through that, and now everyone is back doing great. So we're so grateful to make it through that.
Why?
And we're going to make it through this one as well.
Here for my NVIDIA and Salesforce-focused roundtable are Melissa Otto, Visible Alpha, head of TMT Research, and Nancy Tengler, Laffer Tangler, investment CEO. Nancy, let me
doesn't bode
let me start
well
with you
for
here.
my
You heard
calls.
Mark Benioff right here at the end. I want to start on Salesforce. We'll get to NVIDIA.
Got some NVIDIA calls.
Are you surprised? I'm sure. I get he's a software executive. But are you surprised to hear him essentially just write off what we're seeing in software stocks? I mean, the market is trying to send a message to anyone that would listen.
To share the stream of around this.
Brian, I 100% agree with your opening. You used to get a lot of Ohana on those calls. There wasn't a lot of Ohana on this call. We exited Salesforce a couple of years ago. It wasn't that
at the last minute I was
foresaw the SaaS apocalypse.
At the last minute, I was made aware that I could even come on here and do a stock market opening because, like I said in the last stream, I have blown out who I'm staying with's bandwidth because I'm technically homeless and I am staying with a friend who is kind enough to let me use their internet. And I, like some kind of jerk, came in here and I think she has a 500 gigabyte per month limit. And I blew it out by like 4 terabytes with live streams. So, yeah, added $100 to her bill. I will have to pull that out from my backside at some point. But she was kind enough because the billing cycle reset today. So she's kind enough to say, go ahead, do what I got to do as long as I pay her back. And I do have some money coming, so I'm not dead broke. But old Rumble doesn't want to pay me because I haven't made enough yet. YouTube doesn't want to pay me because I'm below the $100 price point. So I've got the money. The damn price points. But we're getting there. We're getting there, guys. I appreciate everybody coming and visiting. It would be even better if you dropped a like. Or maybe drop a stock pick you'd like me to check out. So far, we're just looking at NVIDIA over here. We're watching NVIDIA suck it. Drop your stock picks in the chat, bruh.
This is around feeds and how feeds may ultimately shake out and create new business models. And then there's Agentforce. You know, what's Agentforce going to do at a place like Salesforce? So we've got a lot of variables, and investors just may be saying, do I need to be here right now?
This channel is relatively new. It's been around for a couple of years. However, I didn't actually start doing anything like this since, I've been doing live streams for Bitcoin for about a year, and I just recently got monetized on YouTube. Rumble is a different story, but I just recently got monetized on YouTube, January the 5th or the 6th. And since then, I think I've made a whopping $60. But it's increasing week over week. So that's good. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. Unlike NVIDIA. NVIDIA's getting somewhere. It ain't getting where I want it to go. I mean, ouch. There's a lot of red in the stock market today. Well, a lot of big red. There's a lot of green too. Coinbase taking a little bit of a dip. Bitcoin's been doing all right the last few days. I mean, it was at, what, 63-ish? And it ran all the way up to 68? Come on, that's pretty damn good. But Bitcoin is volatile. This is what it does. The higher Bitcoin runs, the higher or the bigger those moves are going to be. You know? Watch. One day when Bitcoin runs up to $1 million, one day, for it to drop $100,000 in one day will be no big deal. But people will be freaking out over it, I guarantee it. I mean, a 10% drop is something to write home about, but still, the higher it goes, the bigger the moves are going to be. That's just how it goes. I'm just sharing this stream around. Get some people in here. We had a pretty good turnout for the what do you call it, for the State of the Union, which you can go rewatch if you want. There's some funny moments. Now I try and stay pretty down the middle in this group, just because, you know, we're all Americans here. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome here. Green is the only color that matters here, baby. If you can't hear it, I'm sharing the living hell out of this stream. Got to boost this audience up. Got to have some more people. Got to have somebody dropping some stock tips. Let's go. Or not stock tips, but stock picks. All right, Bitcoin. Man, silver was on a roll. I'm glad I didn't buy any futures like I was tempted to. I was tempted to right around here because I was convinced that it was going to blast its way past that 90, but it looks like it was having some trouble doing it. And then it came all the way back down to the 86-ish, 87. That's okay. It's going to do this. I've got a hell of a prediction for silver, though. Coinbase still hanging on. Still hanging on to its gains it made yesterday. Yeah, because see, that's yesterday. And that's the end of the market yesterday. And this is this morning. Crypto heat map over the last 24 hours is still looking good. The last hour, rather flat. Last 4 hours, a little more green, Solana and whatnot, but still flat. But over the last 24 hours, the crypto space is looking nice. Stock heat map for the day so far is not looking very good. In the last hour, it's worse off now than it was in the last hour. This is the S&P. Let's check out what the old NASDAQ is doing. Looks like the big players are all red, huh? What's the Dow Jones Industrial doing? We got more green there. Looks like that sector or that part of the market is doing way better. Russell 1000. Russell 2000. Woo! You can't even tell what all that shit is. Dare I hit the Russell 3000? Well, that looks better than the two. Still a lot of red in tech. I think that's mainly because in the news the last 24 hours, all they've been doing is dogging AI, talking about the bubble. Let's see what these yahoos are saying on Yahoo.
Analyst Nancy, like the thoughts are still with me. It's like ingrained in my heart and soul. It's just still there.
Well, we did overweight industrials. We started trimming tech last summer, and because we had such a big pop after Liberation Day, and we did overweight industrials. Our investing theme has been old economy companies that are pivoting to the new technologies, and then the suppliers of the picks and shovels. So in industrials, one of the most recent names that comes to mind is Deere. So you've got a company that's sort of describing themselves in as a SaaS company, which I'm sure they're going to modify, but they focused on their tech stack at the Investor Day. This is a prescription or subscription company that is going to continue to produce results in industrials. But we also own GE Vernova and Quanta Services and Eaton and Emerson. These are companies that are going to help streamline using AI, and that's what we're hearing across all of the company earnings calls that we listen in on. The companies are not just using AI to reduce costs.
I can hear it.
In fact, IBM just announced they're going to triple their entry-level hiring. But they're using it to drive growth and improve productivity within the company, which does go straight to the bottom line, which is why I believe that we're at margins that are at historic highs. So I'm with you. We're very optimistic about the economy and the market. It's going to be choppy. It was time for some choppiness, but we'll get through it, and it's a buying opportunity for long-term investors.
Melissa, last word to you. We're pretty much all through earnings. We're going to get target earnings next week, but they're really going to suck. I think we kind of know that already. What has been your biggest takeaway from earnings season? What are you looking for in the first quarter as we start to get some of these reports in a few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we would like to see some additional upside, some upward revisions, some meaningful beats to expectations. Currently, what's out there is more or less in line.
Is the 21st century economy.
The transactions
snapped up nearly $1 billion of Bitcoin.
And the technology.
We need to build a digital Fort Knox.
That gives people financial freedom, and that's a wonderful thing.
That's extraordinary.
We ride the wave that is Bitcoin.
Bloomberg Crypto.
Come back
only
up
on Bloomberg.
I mean, it whooped earnings.
Each week on Wall Street
it destroyed the earnings. So what's the problem?
Business, markets, economics,
everybody's
tech,
selling. That's
more than what you need to know.
See, everybody bought.
What you need to think about.
Everybody bought right here yesterday. Right before market closed. Everybody bought in.
This is the Asia Trade.
Right up from earnings.
This is Wall Street
selling out.
Welcome to Balance of Power.
So as soon as they're done,
Bloomberg Television.
the stock will go back to
World's
acting
most
like
powerful investors don't ring a bell. They quietly reshape entire industries. This is the money shaping the world. The dealmaker playbook, where power and billions of dollars change hands every day. From private equity and credit to venture capital and M&A, we bring you the inside scoop on the biggest deals and debates, plus exclusive conversations with finance's ultimate insiders. I'm Danny Berger, and this is Bloomberg Deals. Every week, only on Bloomberg Television. A check on your equity market, and it's NVIDIA that's causing the downturn. NASDAQ down 0.5%. S&P, that's down about 0.25%, while the Russell 2000, that's hanging on, up 0.2%. A turnaround from the future session for both the main index and for NVIDIA. Let's get you some of the top calls, the analyst action that we're watching this morning. First up, TD Cowen raises NASDAQ to a buy after its investor day, citing stronger confidence in its platform. The firm says NASDAQ is a key beneficiary of AI and calls its valuation, quote, attractive. Next up, Truist Securities, that is upgrading U.S. Bancorp to buy, saying profits from lending will pick up this year. The firm's also confident on margins, expects credit card growth to boost earnings, shares up 2.8%. And finally, NVIDIA posting a beat and raising its outlook. It's not enough, apparently. JP Morgan, though, calling it the biggest beat and raise the chip industry has ever seen. Truist says the company has significantly growth and stock upside potential. The market doesn't see it that way, I guess. Shares up 3.33%, Matt, or down 3.33%.
Well, or they're taking profits, right? Because everyone already owns this stock. We've been talking about this morning. If you don't own NVIDIA, then you're not really a diversified investor, right?
Yeah, very true.
Let's bring in an expert. Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Technology Research is here with us at the desk, Mandeep Singh. Mandeep, first of all, what did you think of the earnings? Just give us your take on the release.
I mean, stunning, really. That's the best way to frame it, because you don't see, companies of this size, one have, growth of over 70%, and then really keep beating their quarters the way NVIDIA is doing it. So with that being said, the part that was interesting is they said 50% of their revenue, data center revenue, comes from hyperscalers. The other 50% is now enterprises, neoclouds, and sovereigns. And if they are guiding for 77% growth, and they feel that part is going to accelerate, to me, that is music, because so far the risk to NVIDIA's story was hyperscaler CapEx. If it starts to decelerate, that's going to have a big impact on NVIDIA. Well, if their customer base is more fragmented and enterprises, neoclouds, sovereigns are buying, that's all inferencing revenue. And to me, that is more durable in terms of sustaining the high growth rates that everyone expects of NVIDIA.
Can you find any sore spots in the earnings that would explain a negative reaction? Or is this just something completely different and not based on fundamentals, what we're seeing this morning?
Yeah, I think right now it feels like more of, the SaaS complex really impacting NVIDIA, because at the end of the day, if SaaS companies are getting hurt, there's no way that, people will spend more in terms of their IT budgets on NVIDIA, because NVIDIA is a chip maker. You have to translate that to software usage. Yes, we are seeing that in OpenAI and Anthropic's growth rates, but all of these software companies right now are bleeding. I mean, they're more in the value side than, and they always used to trade, as growth companies. So from that perspective, there is a disconnect right now that you see in the market in terms of where SaaS companies are trading and how fast NVIDIA is growing.
That is true.
At some point, you want to see, a company like Salesforce starts to see top-line acceleration. Same thing for other software companies that should benefit from AI in theory, but right now it's not reflecting in their top-line results.
What about competition? I mean, a few years ago, we would say all these other chip makers are like a decade away from NVIDIA's capabilities. Now AMD seems to be getting some big contracts, at least, right? We were talking with Sabanova,
reading every single application from every Texan twice,
CEO, really fascinating
and selecting
company,
amazing young men to serve our nation.
As far as I can understand it, is really efficient. Are there cracks now in NVIDIA's dominance?
Actually, yesterday's print shows that competitors are way behind, because if they're growing networking revenue, at 350%, that's huge. So NVIDIA is now, the co-design that they're doing with their chips, networking, and other gear is what's really driving the total cost of ownership. And because power is the real constraint, everyone still wants NVIDIA systems, not just the chips. And that's the big differentiator between NVIDIA and AMD. Only Google TPU comes close, but right now, I would say NVIDIA, Google TPUs, and everyone else. And even AMD had to, do that deal with Meta, which really wasn't very attractive for them in terms of giving away stock warrants. So from that perspective, they have a clear lead, and that's not changing anytime soon.
It's just a mind-boggling thing of hearing you talk about just how strong they are, and then looking at that screen and seeing shares down 3%.
But they're up 1,400% over the last 5 years. So they're down 3% today.
They'll be fine.
NVIDIA would get a huge reaction to the upside because earnings were so strong, and there was a really strong set of earnings.
They'll be fine.
To me, it's so fascinating that we're all worried about AI eating software's lunch, but no one has talked about AI eating chip designers' lunch. Like, why doesn't Claude design a chip that's better than NVIDIA's?
Well, I think there's so many use cases, and that's what Jensen highlighted, Claude Code. That is the use case around agentic AI that's taken off. But that's new. It's not really replacing existing software, what they're doing with Claude Code and Codex. And that's where you have to really hope that there are new use cases, productivity use cases that create these new markets that everyone feels excited about. I mean, really, the coding agent use case has taken off, and that's what Jensen called out as the real driver of inferencing use for their chips.
Mandeep, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Off the back of those NVIDIA earnings, Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Tech Research, maybe the smartest man on this planet, Mandeep
Base 44.
Coming up.
It pulls our expenses into one place and breaks down spending by team.
Guys, one of these days. Coming up,
just built an app.
Impossible.
That's enough of Bloomberg. That song cost me 5 cents every time they show up.
Training rotations.
It can now.
Fox Now.
It's actually pretty good.
During a
If you're going for generic.
How about
after the Berlin Wall came
Oh,
down.
that's much better. What about all of our files?
It's already connected to our drive and our mail
Combat
and
development
Slack.
position working
gotta
at the
send this
tactical
to
level
finance.
of acquisition process at the mid-career
But it needs
schoolhouse
editing
of Fort
permission by
Leavenworth.
department.
Sure.
On first
Anything
core
else?
G4
And this
staff as
process
the
invoices.
Can it show cost growth by
category?
Working with allied countries
Can it
in
track
and
spending
around
trends?
Pacific
Only
Rim.
could auto flag overspending.
The operations officer from
Done.
I don't think that has anything to do with what we're interested in. Let's see what Yahoo is saying. As soon as I get it to monitor out. Boom. There's another song that'll eat into any profits I make, which isn't much for YouTube or Rumble for that matter. All right. Does anybody anywhere have any stock picks they'd like me to take a look at? That's what I'm here for. Let's go back to Fox Now. They seem like to be the only people that are not on commercial.
Critical to meeting the challenge the president has set before us. The people who manage our material and supply chains are just as critical to mission success and lethality as what they manage. Second, bring a warfighter's perspective to the sustainment portfolio. One who has been on the ground in 4 of our geographic combatant command AORs and fully understands the sense of urgency that Secretary Hegseth has expressed in his message to the force memo. Third, with both my military experience and nearly 16 years of legislative experience in coalition building and collaboration, I commit to working internally with partners across the Office of the Secretariat, the Department, the Joint Staff, the services, the combatant commanders, our organic industrial base, and exterior to the Department to collaborate with allies and partners to build that deterrence. And I commit that if confirmed, I will work tirelessly to apply these perspectives to prioritize limited resources to enhance the warfighting capacity and lethality that will deter, and if called upon, defeat our enemies. Finally, if confirmed, I will work with this committee and the Congress to provide our armed forces with the capabilities needed to defend and protect our national security, both here and abroad. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, and members. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Senator Birdwell. We appreciate.
And of course, wanted to bring you some of that testimony there, the opening remarks from Texas Senator Birdwell, as he is one of those 2 nominees that the Senate is going to discuss here in connection with all of this. And that is, of course, the Assistant Secretary of Defense. There are 2 nominees there, and they're going to discuss everything with both of them. 9:54 on the East Coast and 6:54 on the West Coast. Do have to step away for a quick break, but a lot more live coverage coming up in just a few. My name is Josh Breslow.
Yeah, and my name is Buck, and I've got live coverage for you right now for Bloomberg. What are they
ramped
doing?
up production in
Where's
December,
Bloomberg?
and it's supposed to hit dealerships in March. But the big thing Filosa talked about was the Hemi engine, the Hemi V8, baby. I mean, they are just undoing a lot of product.
Yeah, if you didn't see, yesterday, Ford was killing it. Let's see what they're doing today. The hell kind of chart is that? I swear, TradingView is great, but sometimes, what? Maybe that's not the right Ford. Yeah, F is the one we're looking for. My bad. Yeah, look at that. Ford's fucking screaming this morning. I mean, granted, that's only a 35-cent jump, but that's still almost a 2%. That's still pretty good. Congratulations to you if you bought any Ford calls or shares or whatever. Ford is looking nice.
And warranty issues and things like that. So they've got a lot of operational problems on top of trying to get the right product out the door.
I mean, maybe they watch this show. I've been saying, you know, axing the Hemi was the biggest mistake they could possibly have made. I say it so much that they couldn't not have heard me.
That's not even Ford they're talking about, right?
And that's why they're talking about putting, they're bringing back more variations of the product. They're just leaning hard on all of the, core product because President Trump rolled back the cafe regulations. That is liberating Detroit, as we've written about.
I like the 345. I own the 392. They need to bring back the 426. Hopefully Antonio Filosa comes on this show with us. Gabby, thank you so much. Gabby Coppola there in Detroit. Listen to my podcast, Hot Pursuit.
That song cost me a nickel. That one too. I just have to eat it. Let's see what Fox Now is saying, being that everybody else is on commercial.
Assistant Secretary of Defense or War, depending how you want to refer to it. Right now, Congress officially referring to it in this nomination as Assistant Secretary of Defense. Now, we brought you one of those nominees. I want to bring you the comments here from the other just moments ago on Live Now from Fox.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee for Assistant Secretary of War for Homeland Defense and America's Security Affairs.
I see.
I'd like to start by thanking my family for being here today, especially my wife. Her love and support are the foundation of everything that I do. My entire adult life has been a commitment to serving this great nation, a calling that began on September 11th, 2001. The tragic attacks of that day profoundly impacted my life, and they shaped my understanding of what it means to defend the homeland. I've always believed that meaningful service is found in confronting the most difficult challenges, and I have deliberately sought out those roles in my life. After the attacks of September 11th, I decided to apply to the United States Naval Academy with the goal of becoming a military officer. After witnessing the horrific effects of improvised explosive devices in Iraq and Afghanistan, I decided to select explosive ordnance disposal as my occupation with the goal of saving American lives. And now, with the many threats facing our nation, I am seeking confirmation to lead one of the department's most challenging portfolios. The prospect of serving as an assistant secretary in President Trump's second term would be the highest honor of my professional life and an opportunity to continue advancing the president's vision for a strong and secure America. I'm grateful for the trust President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have placed in me. This administration has a clear and decisive vision for the defense of our nation, a vision laid out in our core strategic documents. Our approach is one of hard-nosed realism, grounded in deterrence, focused on securing our homeland by bolstering security at our borders, dismantling narco-terrorist networks, deterring adversary threats, and restoring law and order in our cities. The 2026 National Defense Strategy establishes an undeniable truth.
That's great and all, and I am totally for that guy and the military, of course. However, that's not why we were here, people. We are here for money, stocks. And if there's anything you'd like me to look at, by all means, throw it in the chat, the live chat. I realize on Rumble there's a live chat and then there's comments. Live chat is what I'm speaking to. See what Bloomberg is saying, or Yahoo actually. No, nothing, just another nickel to take from me.
I'm Julie Hyman. We're 30 minutes into the U.S. trading day. Here is what we are watching this hour. First up, we'll have full analysis on NVIDIA earnings and how Wall Street is viewing those numbers. Plus, we'll hone in on AI's impact across the software industry as Salesforce adds to disruption fears. And we'll sit down with the CFO of Lumen Technologies as the fiber optic provider announces a new deal with AI startup Anthropic. Taking a look at the major averages right now, things have gone a little mixed here. We've got the Dow hanging on to a gain of more than 150 points, but the S&P 500 is down by about 1/3%, and the NASDAQ is now falling by about 0.8%. Now, we continue to have the divergence here between the S&P 500, which is a market cap weighted, and the equal weight index, which weights all the stocks in the index the same. This is something we talked about earlier with Michael Kantrowitz of Piper Sandler, where he had pointed out this outperformance as a sign that things are going well in the market and that the underlying economic fundamentals favor
more or less
stocks now, even if tech stocks are pulling back today. And that's what's happening. Tech stocks are indeed pulling back today.
Yes, sir.
NVIDIA shares, which were slightly higher earlier, pre-open this morning, now are down by 3.5% after the company's numbers that beat estimates, guidance that beat estimates, commentary that was positive, and yet
that's people taking lots of profit. That's what that is.
In big tech, what stands out to me also is Alphabet down by more than 2%, but you have other chip makers like Broadcom also under some pressure here this morning. So that's part of the story. And then for the other part of the story of what we're watching, we've got to go back to software as well. And we now, interestingly, have Salesforce that is trading higher by 3%. Those shares were sort of bouncing around the flat line earlier. We're going to talk more about Salesforce in just a few minutes, but it's interesting to see that recovery here, even where there's a lot of concern still about that company's growth. But software broadly, as you can see, is gaining at the moment. So why is the S&P 500 and NASDAQ down? It's mostly because of NVIDIA. The XLK is the biggest drag here, and of course, NVIDIA is the heaviest weight within the S&P 500. You have financials that continue to bounce back today, but that is right now enough to salvage what's going on, or I should say not enough to salvage. Where we have the S&P 500, there it is, down about 0.5%. So we've got that drag from tech that is not counterbalanced by some of the gains we're seeing in the other groups today. So let's dig more into NVIDIA, shall we? The upbeat first quarter guidance signaling ongoing strength in AI. This after the chipmaker's revenue climbed 73% year over year in the fourth quarter. Joining me now, Gil Luria, D.A. Davidson, Head of Technology Research, and Ruben Roy, Stifel Applied Technology Analyst. Ruben, I'm going to start with you. What's the problem here when it comes to the shares? Is it just that there's essentially nothing that NVIDIA could have said or done to make the shares go up substantially?
No, that's people selling off. That bought right in here. They're selling off. It's going to go back up. It's going to be fine. They're just filling time.
Expectations were widely.
But you got to watch that RSI. Now, if you're new here and you don't know what RSI is and what these charts represent, a lot of times you'll have charts that you see on YouTube mainly where somebody will have some sort of wave map down here. A lot of times it's just measuring volume or what have you or whatever. I always, in all of my charts, I always use RSI, Relative Strength Indicator or Index, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a throttle. And it is one of the best predictive models you can use for just about anything. When your RSI is where it's at right now, especially when it's in this red shaded area here, it's getting so low that it's looking for a reversal. The same applies in the opposite direction. When it gets up to about 70 or 80, it'll be running during that time. But once it, like 60 is the sweet spot, 60, 65, that's where you want to see anything that you're wanting to go up. That's where you want to see the RSI at. But once it breaks through 70 and gets towards the 80 or higher, that's getting overheated. At that point, you can expect a pullback. And the higher that number is, the sooner that pullback is coming. So that's why I always put RSI on every one of my charts. It's one of the best predictive models. You see, the yellow line is the average. The purple line is the current. The average is about to cross with the current. And around when that happens is when this downward trend will probably stop. It might touch this resistance level. And then it'll pop back up. Usually when it gets this low, it's looking like it's... Yeah, it's looking like it's in the teens. Whew, sub-teen. Looking at 12, 14. Yeah. You can expect a run back up here shortly. When? Who knows? We'll see. But NVIDIA is sucking it. Right now would be a good time to buy, actually. Not financial advice, of course, but that's what I would do. Faux show. Salesforce looks like it's still doing okay. Tesla's sucking it. But you see the RSI on Tesla? I don't think it's done coming down. Bitcoin. Same thing. Look at that RSI all over the place. Bitcoin had a great last 24 hours. Crypto heat map is a reflection of that. Everything's up. As is Coinbase. What concerns me, though, is silver. Like, it doesn't need to go any lower. In fact, I do believe it will likely never, ever fall below... It's probably never going to fall below $50 again, but I don't think it's going to go below 75 for quite a while. We've got a hell of a prediction in store for silver. that I will give at the end of the day here, well, the end of my stream, which I will be on until roughly 11ish. I've got to limit my broadcasts because I blew out the bandwidth where I'm staying, and I am so grateful for the person I'm staying with for allowing me to blow her bandwidth out. All right, so that's NVIDIA. Are they still running their mouth about the obvious?
Are the fastest growth of the mega caps. So yes, the concern is when is the cycle going to peak, but it can't peak this year for NVIDIA and 3 years from now for everybody else.
Right. I mean, listen, I look at that 1 year NVIDIA chart and I see a lot of sideways movement. And so I guess then the next question is, like, what happens to get it to break out of that sideways movement? What is the next catalyst? I mean, maybe, Gil, it's as you say, you know, Microsoft comes out with even more eye-popping spending plans for next year. I mean, Ruben, what would be your contender for what the next catalyst could be?
Well, we've seen some innovation on the frontier model side. There was a lot of chatter around Google's Gemini 3. We really haven't seen the latest, sort of frontier models operating on NVIDIA's Grace Blackwell infrastructure. So we have that to come. I think that could be interesting. NVIDIA's got a big event coming up, obviously, in mid-March with their GTC event.
I went ahead and changed the candles to 1 minute just so we can see what it's doing better. It's foolhardy to trade on the 1 minute candles, okay? Let's make that clear. If you're an active trader, you probably should stick with the 5 or 15s and then use a 4 hour for a predictive model as well.
Hyperscalers driving around 50% of the data center revenue today, but areas like sovereign government, enterprise, neoclouds, and others, really starting to step in and accelerate some of the growth. So, I think as some of those other areas, continue to progress, those could act as catalysts as we flow through this year. And then obviously we've got yet another introduction of a new architecture coming later this year with Vera Rubin. So I think there's a lot on the plate coming that could be, positive catalysts for the stock. And to Gil's point, with the multiple where it is today relative to a lot of the other component suppliers and chip companies into AI infrastructure, it seems like the risk to reward here would skew favorably as we go through some of those events.
Right, and we also see things like networking revenue go up, something like 230%. I'm also curious, Gil, to get your take on, NVIDIA, which has really planted its flag in the GPU world, now also turning back more towards the CPU world and competing on that front. There's, I guess, not unconfirmed rumors as of yet that they could come out with a CPU for...
all this talk about NVIDIA is nice and all, but let's get something straight. NVIDIA's not going anywhere. NVIDIA owes all of their success to just a few things, all right? For one, of course, the AI space, right? What's not to be said about that? For two, their graphics cards. And if I were writing an outline, 2 would have an A, B, and C attached to it because those graphics cards are used by gamers. They're also used by Bitcoin miners. They need those awesome video cards to run those miners. NVIDIA is largely responsible for some of the best video cards out there for crypto mining. So there's that. And that's pretty much, and then of course, it's the people who just have to have to get the newest card the second it comes out, with their controlled obsolescence. So yeah, NVIDIA's here to stay for quite a while. So all this nonsense down here, this is nothing. Hang on tight. It will be fine. They gave a predictive price point for NVIDIA, a week or so ago of $280 or $278, I think it was. Yeah. We're fine. This is a discount. Not financial advice, of course, but it's an excellent time to buy NVIDIA. If I were to give financial advice, which I am not, right? Drop a ticker symbol in the chat if you want to see something other than NVIDIA, because that's all it's going to be in the news today.
GTC.
Guys, I want to zoom way out for a minute and talk about something that was a point of discussion on the show earlier, which is NVIDIA's role, obviously, as the largest company, but I wonder
in the world
if it is as much a bellwether of the AI tech trade as it was.
Stocks, even with today's rally, it is down 18% year to date. Okay. And even looking through the analyst notes, pretty solid print, not too great. Looking at their forward guidance, better than was expected, but some of the traders that I talked to were saying, management team maybe being a bit more optimistic than expected. So we are seeing maybe some short covering or just people taking some of those bets on Snowflake right now.
I tell you, boy, if I was a hedge fund, boy, I'd be in my
Snowflake.
I think we need to buy it. I think we need to just go in there and buy all these names that are down 20, 30%.
It's tough. I mean, it's one of those
career
things.
Call one way or the other.
Exactly. You can make a
Snowflake.
ton of money, and you're now the guy who, like Michael Burry, you were right one time, and we write books and make TV shows about you. Or
I'd probably be the other guy. All right, NVIDIA.
The one that matters, NVIDIA, ticker NVDA, right now down 3.7%, worst day in, call it 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. Came after pretty darn good earnings at least at the face value, beating expectations on revenue, gross margin still looking strong, just year-over-year growth north of 70%. The big debate around the company and the entire AI ecosystem, obviously, is at what point is there a slowdown? At what point does hyperscaler CapEx hit its kind of breaking point? Analysts still, again, across the board, more or less bullish, but the big puts and takes or debates on some of the desks.
This is just people taking profit. This is just profit taking from everybody betting on the earnings. That's all this is. And anything beyond that is other people getting scared and selling out with their paper hands. NVIDIA is not a stock that you should be selling unless you're day trading. NVIDIA is the largest company in the world with almost a $5 trillion market cap. Okay? They're not going anywhere. Not that they're too big to fail, but they've got their hands in everything. AI, gaming, crypto mining. That's really, what else do you need to be a huge generator of cash like NVIDIA is?
Morgan Stanley is saying this is the largest, cleanest beat and raise in the history of semis industry. And yet we still sell it. And interestingly, I've just been going back over history. The stock has generally risen after earnings. That's because they generally beat. 13 times, about 81%, they tend to rise after the earnings. 3 times, about almost 20%, have they fallen in the last 16 earnings events. Now, at the moment, they are struggling against just sentiment. Sentiment wants to sell some of these winners. Sentiment has been concerned about the capital expenditure, about the resilience going into 2027, as really Bailey had been articulating. How long can this run for? Now, analysts are super bullish. 78 still say buy the stock. Only one says sell, and that one Seaport analyst has been saying sell it for a very long time now.
That one is like, 9 out of 10 dentists suggest you use toothpaste. Like, who's that other one? They're an idiot.
$8 trillion company to continue to grow at 78% revenue is what they're forecasting. That's significantly higher than $5 billion more than the consensus. At some point, the law of scale means, look, revenue will grow 20%. Is that a bad thing?
So do you think that the worries about CapEx spending and return of investment are overblown or justified?
Certainly analysts are saying that they're overblown. And that really you should see that the management are clearly identifying that they've got inventory in place, they've got the capacity in place for the next few quarters. Capital expenditure is still going to be coming thick and fast from their biggest data center buyers, who are the hyperscalers. They have no issue issuing debt at the moment. They have no worries about continuing to scale. Yes, people question perhaps how the neoclouds are continuing to build out and whether we'll start to see a bit of an issue on them tapping the debt markets. But more broadly, it's resilient. I think the lingering question mark is market dominance. Jensen Huang did a great job at saying we are seriously penetrating in inference, not just training. But where people worry about is, look, Meta's just done a deal with AMD. And you're seeing ASICs really win the day. Everyone wants to build their own chips. When is the case when OpenAI with Broadcom makes its own chip rather than turning to NVIDIA? Yes. That's what they really need to push up against. And also, we didn't get anything new on China.
That's what I asked. Are they
AMD's sucking it too.
Some chips, but no chips. I know the analysts have took the China revenue out of their estimates.
Yeah, and so did NVIDIA, to their point. And they were saying, look, we haven't included anything of that in our forecast. They've got the licenses, H200s. They're allowed to go and start selling them. And they have to give 25% cut to the government, remember?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but still they're allowed to. It's just there's no demand. China, the government, as it stands, doesn't seem to want H200s. Now, different question mark when it comes to the potential Blackwell iteration, but as yet they haven't had the licenses to be able to sell those.
So with global competition and regulatory issues, what should investors be watching out for
For
after
NVIDIA?
this earnings? Yes.
I mean, investors at the moment are wondering whether or not when you start to buy the stock. Now, the notes that I'm reading, particularly over at Mizuho, for example, are saying into GTC, which is when you get the big, bold bets. So that is their big tech conference.
Okay.
That is
like
when they
well.
release, twice a year really, they release what's coming next.
When's the next one?
And that's coming up in March. So maybe there'll be a catalyst there. That's when you're going to see how much Rubin is dominating. Look, they couldn't have said better things about the run rate that they see more than $500 billion by the fiscal full year end for Rubin, for Blackwell architecture. What next? Look, this is a company like Apple that every single year is innovating and bringing us a new, more powerful chip. And they say that's more efficient. So maybe that's the catalyst. But for now, again, like in software, no one really wants to catch a falling knife.
I tell you, this is one of the most amazing income statements I've ever seen anywhere. 344 billion projected for this year in revenue, up 60%, amazing. In EBITDA margin, that's the world I came from. EBITDA, they have almost a 70% EBITDA margin.
You know, it's astounding to me that people don't know a good thing when they see it. These are all stocks on sale, guys. These are all deals. Is the AI bubble popping? Not yet. Not quite yet. But today, overall, is looking like a bit of a red day, for sure. Silver does not want to come back up and give me my $90 that it needs to do. Like, it was almost there. Bitcoin coming back down, still maintaining that near 67,000 range, which is great from yesterday, because I believe it was at 63 yesterday. And you can expect to see even more moves like this as the price of Bitcoin increases year over year. That's just the nature of it, right? You're going to see craziness in the market when it comes to crypto. When Bitcoin reaches, say, $500,000, not outside the scope of reality. If you think it is, then you should really look more into it, because anybody who who is anti-crypto just doesn't know enough about it. Because I promise you, if you did, you wouldn't be against it. Anyway, once Bitcoin runs up to about the $500,000 mark, you're going to see much bigger moves. You're going to see it move $50,000 to $100,000 in a day, and people will lose their minds. It's called scaling, people. Things scale over time. That's how it works. So, you know, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. Now it's on sale. Pay attention. Let's see what Fox now. What are they talking about?
Beautification projects, which seems to be counterproductive, particularly for that kind of money. So we'll continue to have those conversations if confirmed. My second question for you, sir, is if you are confirmed, under what circumstances would you support sending troops into states in advance of an election?
Senator, for any situation where we would be utilizing National Guard, the first objective is always to make sure that people are safe and secure.
Yeah. Secretary of Defense nominees. I don't think y'all are interested in seeing that. I'm pretty sure everybody's here because they're interested in their cash. So we will push that to the back. We will push Fox Now to the back. It's good to have, though, just in case there is a little bit of news that may show up. It feels like we're overdue for something big in the news, doesn't it? Not necessarily a financial catalyst either, just something big in the news. What is Bloomberg saying? They're saying, give me a nickel for these damn songs. You can read that without needing the music. Let's go back to Yahoo.
And I think you have fundamentals too that are supportive, and not necessarily fundamentals that Salesforce's company is doing well. It's actually sort of sluggish, and we can talk about that. But you have valuation. So Salesforce trades at about 4 times recurring revenue, and that's where all the cash flow comes from. If it was run hyper efficiently, we think it should trade at any SaaS company should trade at about 5.4 times. That should be sort of a floor. You had a similar thing happen to Workday too, where they gave guidance that people didn't like. It was down big after hours. The next day it was up. It's a complete 180 from a month ago when ServiceNow reported good results and they gave good guidance, and their stock was down 10%. So I think it just got a little bit too well done with software. And I think you're just starting to see people say, okay, this is too much.
Okay, so let's dig into Salesforce specifically then. I mean, what's your assessment of how Agentforce is doing?
Salesforce.
It feels like the vibes around it are not great, but it did book, $800 million in revenue. Do you think that Salesforce is doing the right things on the agentic front?
The agentic front.
I think Salesforce is doing the right things. It's a little bit of a loaded question. So Salesforce, you had a few questions in there. How are they doing with Agentforce? Agentforce was a concept. It wasn't a product when they came out with it.
Salesforce.
And, Salesforce's strength is not necessarily innovation and technology. It is marketing. And that's what it was. Now, they have some product now. They bought some small companies that brought in some talent to try to build it. But they're way behind. And I don't know if they're ever going to get there. I mean, you're talking about a company that was a leader during the last paradigm. And if AI is a new paradigm shift, I think it is, and I think a lot of people think it is. I saw your previous guess. Usually some of the leaders from the previous paradigm are no longer leaders after that. And Salesforce has a big risk of that happening to them.
And do you think that there are companies within software that are more innovative that can, survive and thrive in this cycle?
I do. I think the ones that are more likely to do that are those that have large businesses that have something that is going to continue to feed them cash flow, where they focus on a shift. So I think a great example of that is Microsoft with Azure. Microsoft, when AWS came out and they went after initially the SMB, remember, that was the first thing. And Microsoft was the dominant player for SMB.
Check out Microsoft,
which is what AWS was going after. So Microsoft came out with Azure, but Microsoft has two near monopolies in Windows and Office, where they could support the investment over years of not being profitable, in pouring money into that. Now look what they've done. They were able to do that, and now it's sort of the third leg of the stool for Microsoft with Azure. It's hard to do that. Like with Salesforce, it's not like just Marketing Cloud has to change. The whole company has to. And I don't know if they can do it. It's a big company, and the problem is they haven't been very innovative. You asked the question, who might be able to do it? Mm-hmm. I think Workday has a better shot at it. Workday has always been a technology innovative company. Salesforce's innovation was saying, hey, let's provide a SaaS solution. Let's provide an application through the internet. So you don't need software anymore. It's software as a service. That was their innovation. That was in the late 90s. Like, they really haven't been very innovative since. They've bought companies along the way, and we'll see. They bought some companies that's brought in innovative people, so maybe they can do it. It's going to be very difficult, though.
So, John, it sounds like maybe the SaaS apocalypse isn't done. It's just on pause.
Man, Super MicroStrategy is also a suck in it.
Who happen to mostly be corporate executives, family business owners, and entrepreneurs, is coming from those with concentrated stock positions. And they're asking for guidance about taking their concentrated stock positions down in the most tax efficient way possible. And that's not to say that they're running for the hills and trying to dump everything, but they are wanting to be more proactive and thoughtful about a timely exit from some of these concentrated positions that they have. And that's different for us. Usually we're the ones on the side of the table saying, hey, you have a lot of stock there. Let's take a look at it in the context of your financial plan and maybe take some of it off the table.
That is indeed interesting. I mean, the 2026 narrative has shifted from optimism to AI anxiety. What are you telling investors? How are you telling them to position when it comes to not only tax efficiency, but also the risks of over concentration?
Yeah, so in terms of diversification, Isabel, we're looking at bonds and stocks, sort of typical participants in a portfolio, but also what we call diversifiers. These are oftentimes liquid alternative strategies, trading strategies, and other assets that tend to be not correlated with stocks and bonds. So I think commodities, market neutral, global macro strategies. And we've been generating a lot of positive returns over the last year in particular, and certainly this year with returns up above 6% in those areas. So they've been a nice diversifier in the portfolio. Within the stock portion of the portfolio, we are globally asset allocated. We have a penchant toward value-driven stocks. We just think they've gotten a lot of lack of attention over the last couple of years, and they've really been rallying, and they've benefited from the AI exuberance, as a lot of the companies are in areas that are related to the picks and shovels of the AI world, building data centers and things like that. So that's been helpful. And certainly with the overseas allocations, not only in developed markets, but emerging markets too, we've been seeing double-digit returns so far in 2026, which has been great.
Sandy, we've seen, I think starting kind of late last year, October, November, kind of a rotation happening in the U.S. equity markets, maybe a little bit away from some of the growthy tech areas into some of the maybe more value-oriented, more cyclical, maybe even small and mid-cap. Is that something you guys are participating in? Is that something that is a longer-term play throughout 2026?
It is. We're definitely participating in it. We think it is a long-term play for us in 2026. We expect returns to continue to do well there. A lot of these companies in the value space across large and small caps in the U.S. and also overseas have really been ignored by the market as the Mag 7 have elevated, and all those tech companies have done really, really well. And so we are seeing a bit of a reverse of leadership there, and we think that
I am going to get more coffee, and I'm going to have a smoke while I'm at it. So I'm going to leave Bloomberg. Well, maybe not Bloomberg, because they're just running their mouth. What's Yahoo?
I can see how that might happen, but I remember, it was 2 years ago when ServiceNow started saying, hey, we're going to have all this AI revenue, and Salesforce came right after that. And yes, they said $800 million in ARR, or annualized recurring revenue. And ServiceNow said something a little less than that, but they're going to be $1 billion this year. But their revenue's not growing anymore. It's actually moderating more. So what's happening? Well, you're allocating revenue to AI solutions, or customers are not buying your normal solutions, your traditional solutions, and they're buying AI, but your revenue growth is still declining. So they could say whatever they want about AI. Like, I have all this AI revenue and all these AI users. Yeah, I think it's true what your previous guest said. Enterprises.
I'm going for a smoke break and to refill my coffee. I know I've said it already. But somebody drop a ticker symbol in the chat. I would love to analyze your picks, but like literally nobody's saying anything in either chat on YouTube or in Rumble. Starting to hurt my feelings. I'm going to have to go smoke. Oh. No. I don't have any feelings. I kill those feelings with coffee and smokes.
I think that's the fear. Because
whatever that
if
means,
it's faster, it'll be harder for these companies to adjust. And you'll see a lot of new companies come up that you've never seen before. Like, think of this. Think about, I was talking to, it was Ali Ghazi, so the CEO of Databricks, and asked, who do you think the winners and losers are going to be? And who do you think the winners are in software? And he said, I can't answer that. It's just too early. And this was like a year ago. It's just too early. He said, it's like asking me in 1999 who the winner of the internet is going to be. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I would have said in 99, but I know what I would not have said. I would not have said there's going to be a tremendous amount of wealth created with ride sharing. Ride sharing is going to be a killer app of the internet. I wouldn't have said that in 1999. And there'll be things like Uber and things we hadn't even thought about that come about from AI. Those will be the real winners. It'll be interesting.
For that matter, 5 years ago, would you have predicted that NVIDIA would be the biggest company?
Exactly.
It's the same
Exactly.
same kind of thing. So stay tuned, I guess, is the bottom line, John. John, thank you so much. It's great to see you as always. I appreciate it.
Great to see you too, Julie. Thank you.
Take care. Coming up, we'll take a look at today's trending tickers. You are watching Market Catalysts. Now time for some of today's trending tickers. We are watching Janice Henderson, Trade Desk, and Stellantis. Markets and data editor Jared Blickery here with me to chat about it. First up is Janice Henderson. There's a bidding war for the asset manager. Victory Capital has submitted a bid of $57.04 per share. This comes 2 months after a competing offer was made by Nelson Peltz's Trion Fund Management. So interesting here to see this bidding war go on.
Yes, and this isn't Victory's first dance with this situation here. Let's call it that. First of all, let's do a little history. Nelson Peltz got on the board in 2022, so this has kind of been in the works for a while. And then Victory said only recently it had submitted an initial bid for $52 a share before the Trion deal was announced, but that wasn't necessarily giving meaningful engagement, and that's a quote there. So Victory Capital just topped the Trion bid, offering $57.04 per share, and that would be $30 cash plus 30.35 Victory shares for every Janus share. And they say the JHG holders would own 38% of the combined company with an enterprise value of $16 billion. The Trion officer is a little bit simpler. It's all cash for $49, but of course that is a lower amount than the 57 and change that we're talking about. So I think the big takeaway here at Victory is cash plus stock. You got higher headline value, participation in the combined upside because there are shares involved. involved. And they're saying that the victory is saying that it's fully financed. This includes new debt issuance and bank commitments as well.
We've been talking all about Paramount and Warner Brothers and Netflix.
Others.
We're sleeping on this bidding war
Yes, yes.
in the asset management industry.
Thank goodness.
Janus is a pretty storied and older firm, by the
Mm-hmm.
way. It was founded in 1969, merged with Henderson, which had been founded in 1934, back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a firm that's been around for a long time in
Yes.
active fund management.
Yeah, if we go to the Wi-Fi Interactive real quickly, I'll show you this particular ticker has only been in existence since about the mid-teens, and you can see it was basically trading in this sideways trading range for quite a long time. Finally broke out, and this is all part of those the bidding war that we're talking about right here. So we'll see how this shakes out, but yes, it is nice to have a little break from the Paramount saga.
Yes, that bidding war. All right, let's talk about Trade Desk. Those shares are under pressure. The advertising platform issued a weaker than expected forecast. And on the earnings call, the CEO pointed to softness in ad spend amid macro uncertainty here. So those shares are down some 6%. And they're down a lot over the past year also.
Yes, and this was a stock that was riding high earlier in this bull market. We'll get to the chart in a second. If you're not familiar with what Trade Desk does, they're a self-serve platform for buying digital ads, and it's a demand-side platform. They're competing with Amazon now, and I'll get to that in a second too. But let's get to the earnings. Q1 guide is the problem here. The company's saying Q1 revenue of at least $678 million. The street expected about $10 million more. Not the biggest miss, but at this point, any incremental bad news is just playing to the downside in the stock. Adjusted EBITDA, $195 million versus $222.7 million expected. And then they did have beats in the Q4 quarter, but that was not enough to persuade investors to buy the stock anew. And I mentioned Amazon before. They have their own demand-side platform, and they've been expanding that. So if you're using it, you're not just buying ads within the Amazon and Prime ecosystem. It can be all over. And one of the features of Amazon is they can directly tie it to results. In fact, so if you buy an ad on there and somebody converts it to a purchase within Amazon, you might get a little bit better metrics because Amazon is able to give you that information. So there's a lot of competition from Amazon and also from AI in general. You know, the AI scare trade it has spread in so many different areas. If it can affect transportation logistics stocks like Expediter, of course it can.
Yeah. Well, and there's also some bigger macro concerns as well.
Okay. Now, this has nothing to do with what's going on in the market. I just thought I would bring it up to those of you paying attention. Show of hands, who enjoys being called a liar? Well, nobody's chatting anywhere anyway, so I'm going to take that as a no hands being raised. Well, as some of you may know, I am technically homeless. I sold my house around the end of November. And I dumped almost all of it into Bitcoin at around $95,000. As one could guess, I'm down a hell of a lot. But it's not a loss until you sell. Those are unrealized losses. I will not sell at that sort of a loss. That's that sort of a loss. I'm literally down like $60,000. So I can't touch it. I can't touch any of the money from the proceeds of my house because it's tied up in a loss. That, and I also lost, I'd say, probably about 20 grand playing with futures like a moron. At any rate, I also have some NVIDIA calls, full disclosure. At any rate, the idea was, and the idea still is, I'm moving to Thailand. I am currently disabled. I have a disability claim running. I have a terrible case of arthritis. I'm also diabetic. It's virtually impossible for me to move too very much and overextend myself. I don't have any worthwhile trades. So, you know, I have to take what I can get when it comes to money, when it comes to jobs. And I just haven't been able. I worked at a grocery store last, and they actually fired me because I was taking too many breaks because I just couldn't keep up. You know, I'm 48 years old. I'm not getting any younger. So the plan was to move to Thailand. I had about a month or two to kill before I could do that, because I am also taking my cat. And that costs a little bit of money. I got to get her USDA approved for transport overseas, which that takes time. I was told I needed to have that done 3 weeks prior to taking my trip to Thailand, but when I went to the vet, turns out that process actually takes 9 weeks, and it has to be done 3 weeks before you go. So that set me back 12 weeks that I didn't account for. So during that time, I lost even more money. As everyone knows, the market has totally been shitting the bed. Well, it did between December and January. And yeah, I've been stuck between a rock and a hard place, relying on the good graces of others, which I am so grateful for. Stayed with my cousin for a little while, had to end up leaving because of he's got issues with somebody else in that house. I won't mention names. And then my ex-wife let me know that her grandmother, the woman who actually paid for her and I's wedding, this is my first wife, and she invited me to stay in her house because she was in Costa Rica. I could have stayed there for a week, but I don't know, I felt funny about it, so I didn't take the offer. But when I had to leave my cousins, I didn't have any other choice. So the last day of her trip to Costa Rica, I said, okay, I'll go ahead and take you up on the offer. So I go in, I keep quiet, and I stay to myself, which is what I always do, especially when I'm relying on the good graces of other people. And then I left. And my ex-wife told me that I should talk to her about maybe staying long-term, because she's old, she's in her 80s, she could use the company and maybe some help around the house, like an old person would. I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. That sounds great. I mean, not at first. At first, I was like, I don't know, you know. But she insisted, my ex-wife insisted, that I should totally have a talk with her about it. Okay, fine. So I hit the old lady up, and instantly it was, I don't even know you. Like, my ex-wife and I got married 20 years ago. She paid for that wedding 20 years ago. She's known me for 20 years. And at the time when I met my ex-wife, when we got together, I should say, she wasn't doing so well, and I was. So in the eyes of most people in her family, I was literally the best thing that could possibly happen to her at the time. I'm not trying to stroke my ego or nothing. That's just what they were thinking. Her grandmother in particular. So, you know, in between that time, I had some issues of my own that I won't get into. I ended up going to jail for 6 months because of mistakes that I totally own, but that are totally also in my past. This was now 17 years ago, by the way. So, yeah, me and her grandmother are sitting in the Waffle House having a conversation, and she's crying, bawling her eyes out, talking about how she doesn't know me and she can't trust me. But okay, come on. We'll go on a day-to-day basis. You can move in for a little while. Okay, cool. I'll be on my P's and Q's, no problem. Well, between the time I was there for the one day and when I came back, I noticed she put a deadbolt on her bedroom door. Like I care to begin with. And second, like it was just insulting. Like, who exactly do you think I am? So instantly already I was like, yep, this isn't going to last. So I'm there for, I don't know, just a few days. And I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to use the bathroom. And I noticed that she was awake and she had made coffee. And I was like, okay, cool. Might as well get up. 4 o'clock in the morning, no big deal. Fixed myself a cup of coffee. Went towards the door to go outside to have a cigarette. She stops me in my tracks. She says, we need to talk. She turned the TV off. Oh, okay. What's up? I smelled smoke from your bedroom that you're staying in. Okay. Well, I wasn't smoking. Well, you need to leave. Really? Now, mind you, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 26 degrees outside, and I've got a 10-year-old cat. Like, what can I do? All right, fine. Packed up, left, and right before I left, I said, you know what? I think you're lying. She says, about what? I think you're lying about smelling smoke. I didn't smoke in your house. I never would have. Look at these messages from me and your granddaughter from a month before this opportunity even arose. She said, I can't smoke in the house. And I was like, duh. You don't smoke in a house of somebody who doesn't smoke. That's just duh. Why would I do such a thing? 26 degrees outside, 4 in the morning, get, GTFO. So then I'm in my car with nowhere to go. And I contacted the person that I'm currently at right now, and she was nice enough to let me drive all the way up into here to Walterboro from Charleston for a place to stay. And that's where I'm at now. And I'm doing my best not to overstay my welcome here as well. That's why I haven't been, that's why I'm not going to be able to do as many live streams. That's why you're not going to see the Bitcoin chart running 24/7, because I blew her bandwidth out. I swear to God, it's always something. But at least that much was my fault. This other thing, now this grandmother is talking to my ex-wife, telling her that I've been lying to her about all that happened. Whatever, there's nothing to lie about. You kicked me out 26 degrees outside with a cat for something I didn't do, for something you probably know I didn't do. I straight up called her a liar. So she's just trying to turn the tables on me and make it seem like I'm the one that's lying, when I never lied once to the woman. I've always had the utmost respect for her. And me and my ex-wife and I, who's my son's mother, we actually get along famously. We have for quite a while. We always have. There were just some issues there 17 years ago, 18 years ago when we divorced. And we've both moved on. I remarried, she remarried. So yeah, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I'm gonna put Bloomberg back on because I got to hear what her latest message is.
And looking at the stock reaction to these earnings, I think kind of the substance of what's going on underneath the hood is being missed. It's really hard for, I think, that audience to really grasp the improvement that these models have had over the past 3 months.
What did I tell you about the RSI when it got down to here? I said this is probably a good place to buy. And look, long signal. Ha! I'm telling you, you should listen to me.
Is going to have a profound impact on software, and the way we've been investing around it is we've lowered our exposure to seat-based.
The same with silver. I said it was going to come down to right around here, and it was going to bounce off of this, and I based that solely on the RSI. Now look at it. It has bounced $2, well, $1.50. Okay, now what do I think is going to happen? I think it's going to plow right through this resistance based solely on the RSI. Hold on. Wait a minute. Before we take that as gospel, that RSI is currently at 69, which is great. It's not overheated, which means it could plow right through that. If it's overheated, if it's above, it's in the 70s or 80s, then you can expect it to be met with resistance and not go through it. But when it's running a nice, firm 60, 70-ish, that's a good indicator on the RSI. The best indicator around. Bitcoin doing the same thing I said it would do there. Y'all should listen to me. Drop a stock ticker symbol in the chat if you want me to analyze something. I need to take a phone call. I am sorry, but I will be back.
And now I kind of get a little bit of a better understanding of what the potential threat for software can be when you think about the seat licenses, and that could be a weakness for some of that revenue model there. So again, Gene Munster, one of the best folks, if you want to understand what's going on in the world of tech, get his research, one of the best. S&P down 53, the Dow up 36, the NASDAQ down 335. That's 1.45% on the downside. For the tech-heavy NASDAQ, this is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Fiber optic provider Lumen laid out a multi-year growth plan and its vision for artificial intelligence at its annual Investor Day. Lumen announced that AI startup Anthropic is one of its customers, and it's going to expand the company's fiber network across North America. Joining us now, Chris Stansbury, Lumen CFO, here with me in the studio. Thanks so much for coming in.
Great to be here, Julie. Thank you.
I quickly want to ask about Anthropic before we dig into the rest, because your stock went up during the Investor Day.
I'm going to be on until about 11:30, so bear with me. I will keep these screens up. I will still look at whatever ticker symbols anybody wants to look at, providing somebody says something. I haven't gotten one single chat message. But yeah, this will stay up until 11:30. I will be in and out. I must go have a smoke. And a refill on my coffee.
And so that's where we engage with them. The discussions with the government are obviously multiple layers away from where we are. But I think really what we're seeing right now is what we've seen play out with cloud and other things, where as new technology comes in, it's disruptive, and it takes a while for policy and governance to catch up. And I think we're just seeing that play out right now. So we're not too concerned about that. We're really focused on continuing to provide the services that we do for them and others.
Can you tell me sort of about your revenue in terms of how reliant you are on individual customers?
Yeah, so we have significant diversity across our customer base, and part of how we've turned around the company is with $13 billion of sales to hyperscalers, neoclouds like Anthropic, and there's not concentration really in any one. And I think what that really is a proof point for us, for investors, that we are the trusted network for AI. We're the only ones with the capabilities to do the things that they need for AI to work. And that's why we really sit in a special place as we pivot to the future.
Okay, so let's talk about that place. So you guys are a fiber optic company. You, as you said, have changed the company considerably. You sold off the consumer business, for example. Talk to me about network as a service, because this is going to be a new concept to a lot of people. How does the business model now work?
So let's just do a quick look back in terms of what the shortcomings of kind of enterprise networking have been. And really it was just point to point. Everything was very static. Everything was slow to deliver. I need to get from my premise to my data center or to a public cloud. And what we're seeing as data is chasing energy, and data is the fuel really that everybody needs to be consuming to keep GPUs running, is this proliferation. And now you need to get from anywhere to anywhere. So it's not just from your premise into a cloud, it's from cloud to a cloud, from DC to a cloud. Network as a service unlocks that. So it's the gateway for our customers to, on demand, get access to a programmable network where they can move data from anywhere to anywhere.
So they're not renting or buying a specific line from here to here. They're just getting capacity to get wherever they need to get.
So rather than having a bunch of network engineers, sitting downstairs in the lab and waiting for petabytes of data to be downloaded so that it then can be moved to another location, we can give you an express route where on demand you can do that in a fraction of the time. So it's about big pipes, it's about low latency, but it's about that on-demand capability and the programmability to get from anywhere to anywhere. And we're the only ones building that.
And it costs a lot to build this kind of infrastructure. And I know that you guys are not expecting to be profitable for a little while here as you do that building. So what's then the message for investors on that?
So really a few things. We will inflect EBITDA this year. And so EBITDA is really the measure in the industry, and we'll see it start to grow. We've committed to doing that as part of our guidance. Revenue follows in a couple of years, 2028 in our business segment, because we still do have a legacy business that gives us great cash flow, but it's in decline. What we're seeing, though, is that as customers adopt NAS, it's really starting to accelerate.
NAS is that network as a service.
Network as a service, yes. And we're seeing it grow in the high 20s, 30% quarter on quarter. So we had 1,000 customers roughly in August. We've now got 2,000. And so it's starting to scale, still small. But we expect to see rapid adoption as customers realize that they can consume on demand and really in their own way.
What do people need to know about the competition in this space? As you said, you guys are kind of uniquely pivoting to this model, but surely there are other fiber providers out there.
That's the point. There are other fiber providers, but they're very much point to point. And a few things about that. There's fiber providers, there's service providers. But there's not a fiber provider who has the breadth of network that we have or the underlying capacity, as well as network as a service capabilities, the ability to digitize the network. So we really are in a unique spot where we have both, which allows us to go much deeper with customers in terms of providing a service level that they need in a world of AI.
As I mentioned, the stock did go up yesterday, then it came down. It's recovering a little bit today. Do you think investors got the message yesterday, or do you think that Anthropic provided a distraction? And what did they hear that they shouldn't have, or was there a misunderstanding?
No, it's a great question. The feedback we got from the event yesterday was fantastic because it really did lay out how not just the business but the underlying economics of the business changed. We are moving to a consumption model. It is more of a price times quantity formula now, where as customers sign up, they bring in a port, they can consume services through software. And so it's a much more scalable model, which people are really excited about. I think what we're seeing more broadly is, as a company, we're now starting to be more recognized with the AI trade. There's a lot of near-term volatility as people are trying to figure out what all that means. From our standpoint, though, because we are the only network that can do the things that we're doing, while there will be winners and losers in the large language model space,
right,
whoever wins is going to need our network. Okay. And so we're really good with that.
Got to leave it there, Chris. Thank you so much for coming in. That's it for Market Catalysts.
Unlock the world's largest, most liquid financial market with Forex.com. Forex, or FX, involves trading one currency for another. It's a big deal with a daily turnover of $7.5 trillion. Forex markets are super liquid, ever-changing, and available 24/5. That means one thing: potential trading opportunities. Discover these potential opportunities with Forex.com. Explore 80-plus FX pairs and act decisively with leading platforms, exceptional execution, and low costs. Build your knowledge with comprehensive educational tools, videos, and webinars. Open a free demo account and learn the ropes in a risk-free environment. Take advantage of expert analysis, live commentary, and elite charting. Experience the pinnacle of Forex trading with the #1 broker in the U.S. today.
NVIDIA or Super Bowl, Brian Sozzi. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna plant my flag
I see where
right
you're
now.
going, but I'm gonna let you finish.
We are not gonna call it the Super Bowl anymore, as you did, I believe, yesterday. You were excited. We keep calling it the Super Bowl. It's not our Super Bowl anymore, okay? Because NVIDIA, while it may be the biggest stock in the market right now, it's not the most important anymore. And I'll tell you why. It goes to what Dan was talking about. The question right now in the market that everything is hinging on is not what is the ultimate demand going to be? What's the spend? What's the size of the AI thing? The question is, what is AI going to disrupt? NVIDIA doesn't help us answer that question right now. In fact, if NVIDIA answered that question, it would be sort of late, right? Because by the time software spend slows down and that trickles to the hyperscalers cutting back on their spending, and then it gets to NVIDIA, it's already happened.
So then what would happen if NVIDIA came out with weak first quarter guidance? The whole market would blow up.
Okay, so that would be bad, fair.
But they are also, you know, we get all these estimates. I think B of A put out this week. They're expecting $1.2 trillion in hyperscaler CapEx. And at the core of that are these NVIDIA chips.
Is anybody at this point really deciding, should I buy NVIDIA or not?
This is the chip to have. I mean, the stock.
But you already have it. Everybody already has it.
Has NVIDIA or the chips?
NVIDIA. Everybody already has NVIDIA. Is there any suspense here over, like, I don't know.
I will say this, though. I was digging through the 10K last night because I have nothing else to do in my life. 131 pages of the NVIDIA 10K. I love to see, I was using this as clues for forward demand for NVIDIA. I love that their inventory increased 113% year over year. That tells me that NVIDIA, what Jensen was saying on that call, where that compute is skyrocketing, I think were his terms. I love to see Jensen putting his money where his mouth is and buying a lot of inventories for business. Also loved that they have $60 billion left on their share repurchase program. If there's weakness in NVIDIA stock, expect them to come back into the market here and be buying their stock.
I'm not saying the business isn't huge. I'm not saying the stock's not going to go up. It's just not.
Well, I don't want to find out, Julie. I don't want to find out if NVIDIA wasn't going to come out here and got above.
All I'm saying is it's not as exciting.
Well, then what is the what is the leading stock?
I think one of the issues here.
Yeah, let's let Dan weigh in here.
I think one of the issues here is, and someone brought this up on the call, is okay. So the hyperscalers are going to spend $650 billion in 2026. More than 50% of NVIDIA's revenue comes from those hyperscalers. And one of the analysts, I forget which one on the call, said, yeah, so what? They can't do that forever. So what do you do when that stops happening? And look, that's been a conversation for some time.
Yes, it has.
But $650 billion is a lot, and it feels like that's I mean, $200 billion out of Amazon, $35 billion for Meta. They can't. Those numbers are unsustainable.
In other words.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the questions. I'll throw this little firebomb in there. One of the things that I think is interesting from NVIDIA's earnings is they point out that their networking business is continuing to grow, up 200-something% year over year. And it's not just because folks are buying it as, you know, part and parcel of their chips and, you know, what have you. They're getting other customers outside of that. So they point specifically to Amazon, which has its own chips, right? They obviously have NVIDIA chips, but when it comes to using their own chips, their Trainium AI, they are buying NVIDIA's networking capabilities on their own to pair with their own chips. So I think that's another opportunity. That doesn't, though, answer the question of what the hell you do when $650 billion ain't showing up on your doorstep anymore, right?
Yeah.
Julie, your point is well taken. Not to push back. I mean, this is your show.
You can push back. You're allowed to argue with
this
me.
This is your domain. But I'm going to say, at this point, for me, look, I'm not a tech beat reporter. You know, I don't cover tech like Dan does and is really in the nitty gritty of tech. For me, I'm using NVIDIA earnings as a insight into the economy. And everything I heard from Jensen, everything I saw in these numbers, everything I saw in the 10K leaves me feeling good about where the economy is right now. I saw there's so many data
fine,
points.
that's a snapshot. The
Yeah.
question is not about how the economy is doing right now. It's how is the economy going to do?
Well, I think NVIDIA, just the fact that
into
they
the
increased their
future.
inventory like 115%, I mean, that's a great sign of where the economy is.
I guess I'm not arguing about the status of the economy. What I'm asking is, the thing that everyone is worried about is, are we going to have a job 5 years from now?
Well,
or are
NVIDIA,
there going to be
this
avatars
quarter from
and
NVIDIA
robots?
says no. I mean, you hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We'll have jobs because we're creators. But if if you're working in a back room or an HR department, look at that workday quarter. Look at the market response to that.
Well,
dog
exactly.
quarter.
And so you asked, okay, so if it's not NVIDIA, then what is it? Is it Salesforce? I wouldn't say it's any individuals. I wouldn't say it's any single stock.
Well, I think the NVIDIA
quarter
quarter reinforced the sell-off in software stocks. The strong NVIDIA quarter, how strong it was, to come out here with guidance $6 billion, Dan, in terms of revenue ahead of consensus. That's $6 billion. I think it reinforces how weak a lot of the software players could become over the next 18 months.
I'll say this about the software stocks and the sell-off there. It's wild, and it's insanely overblown. The idea that these companies will come in and just, knock all the software companies down just doesn't make sense. That's like saying AOL is going to come in and demolish everything, right? It's the internet, right? It's just another tool that's going to help drive new ways to use this software over time, right? And Anthropic, that was the catalyst for the sell-off, right, in software and in cybersecurity. And then they came out and they said, hey, we got all these deals with these companies.
Right.
So it's, it doesn't make sense that you're just going to, people are looking at this and saying, well, you know what, let's just pack it up, start selling the desks and, get the fixtures out of the walls.
But then let's get to Salesforce, because then how do you explain Salesforce? Okay, so great, sales were up 12%, and that was the hottest it's been in a while. It's only 12%, right? And people don't, the agent force, the AI product that Salesforce is trying to sell, it's doing fine.
800-something million revenue.
Okay, that's great, but it's not what people want it to be. And the read-through still seems to be that if these software companies are trying to harness AI, they're not quite there yet.
I think one of the other things is we don't get very much, how should I say this, insight into how AI is being used for most companies. Right, we get a general sense, right, or we get like different reports about, from different firms who have done surveys, but we really don't know how every individual firm is using it. Every once in a while, you'll get a press release saying, oh, such and such bank says, it's great. It's like, well, okay, well, where's their documentation saying that, X number of? I mean, we just saw a report. I forget if this is the Journal or Bloomberg, where companies are saying use AI, like use it. That's like say that. Okay, so that's in my mind, that's the everyone back in the office. We made this investment in this big place. We made this investment in this big product. Don't make us look like chumps, right? So we're still trying to figure all of that out, I think. And at this point, everybody's just making bets on what is actually happening without knowing truly what's going on.
And that leads me also to think about, how much do companies know what people are doing?
Oh, they always know, Julie. Rest assured, they know. Oh, they do.
Yeah,
they know when you check in. They know that you may not be logged in your computer right now. They know it all.
Oh, hey, I can fake that.
Well, let me say something real quick on Salesforce. I put out essentially a short free research report on the Salesforce on my LinkedIn page. It's essentially 4 bullet points. I didn't like this quarter from Salesforce. Didn't like the outlook.
You weren't alone.
No, I know. Just the fact, first of all, I didn't like that the outlook was signaling slowing sales growth for them. Didn't like the stock is getting hit on a new $50 billion stock repurchase program. And I didn't like this, and I wanted to put this photo up on the screen. I didn't really like to see Mark Benioff, a person of his stature, take his earnings call and make it a TV show. Mark Benioff is a pioneer in the tech industry, and I think he should be having a more serious earnings call than the one he had right now. That's Mark for the first time creating a show in front of a podcast mic. I get where he was coming from. I understand why he wanted to do this, but I think this is a serious moment for Salesforce. I think it's a serious moment for the financials of this company, and I just would have liked to have seen something different.
By the same token, you and I have listened to hundreds, if not thousands, of conference calls at this point in our careers. Man, they got to shake up that format.
Yeah, I'm a big believer.
I mean,
I'm a big believer.
I respect the effort to shake up the format.
And
Because
we've seen this format being changed. We've seen Vlad Tenev over at Robinhood changing up, T-Mobile, CEO Mike Sievert. He has his own kind of earnings day YouTube show. We're seeing Mark now dabble in it, but there's got to be a better way than having an executive go up to a camera and essentially talk straight into the camera, probably off a prompter for 40 minutes. That's essentially like a normal earnings call. Get retail questions, get retail investor questions in here. I just would have liked to see something a little different from Salesforce on this very important earnings report, and I would have liked to have seen a better outlook from the company.
Well, we know that investors aren't loving it because we're seeing the stock down.
And the stock was down 38% over the past year into this quarter. So when if you would have told me Salesforce was going to come out with a $50 billion new stock buyback plan, the stock would still be down, I would be surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm surprised.
Well, if that wasn't enough Brian Sazzi for you, you can get more of him in about 20 minutes.
Is it too much? Yeah, it's a lot.
Bid.
It's a lot.
Never enough.
It's a lot.
Never enough.
Thanks, Julie.
Dan Howley, and of course you'll be on throughout the day talking about these big stories. Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it, guys. And by the way, take a look at what Polymarket odds are showing for NVIDIA's closing price today. 93% show it above $190, 67% above $195, and 34% above 200. For context, it closed yesterday at 195.56. It is very slightly higher.
Okay, I am back. I'm sorry for the interruption. Doesn't look like it matters anyway. Not very many people have been here today. That's probably because of me being in and out, and I do apologize. I've had some issues going on this morning. And compound that with NVIDIA shitting the bed. My calls are pretty much trash. They still have a month on them, though, but as long as it keeps up with the rate of decay, I might be okay. Maybe. They didn't cost much. I have a Palantir call that's currently down about $800. It's going to die, tomorrow it's dead. I can forget that one. I also have a call for BX, which is Blackstone. Not BlackRock, Blackstone. It's down, of course. Anyway, guess I'm just destined to be poor while my losses stay unrealized. Not a loss till you sell, right? In crypto, that is. It's about $70,000 I'm waiting to come back. Of course, I'm not touching it. Shit. At any rate, I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate everyone's patronage, even if it is just one person watching. I appreciate you being here. I believe that's going to be it for today. If anybody has any questions or any ticker symbols they'd love to see me put up, I would love to analyze some stuff. Silver did not do what I hoped it would do. Right back down with the RSI. But it's all right. It'll make another go for it. Silver is not done. My prediction on silver, which I said I'd give you, all you got to do is look at the Fibonacci's. Silver is going to make another run up to about 130, 140. Once it gets around that range, it's going to crash again, majorly. So if you are trading silver and you're up at about a 130-ish, get out and wait for it to crash and then buy back, because once it starts running again, it's going to go up above 200. The Fibonacci's never lie. Now, how long will that take? That could be a month. It could be a year. No telling. But I do believe once it breaks over 100, we're on our way. So that's what I would look out for. These resistance lines that are here, these are just based on past performance and where it stuttered before. The only resistance in the silver market is psychological. Because let's just be honest here. When it comes to the industrial side of things, it doesn't matter how much it goes. Industry will always need silver, and they will continue to buy no matter what the cost is. They don't trade like you and I. They don't base their decisions on the price of it. They still need it no matter what the cost is. They'll just raise the prices of the stuff they put it in. That's how the industry works. So any downing of it, anytime it goes down, that is all consumer based or manipulation. And let's just be real, silver has been heavily manipulated. Gold as well. Okay, let's take one last look at the stock heat map. Got a lot of red. Nvidia down almost about 4.1%. Google's down, Amazon's down, Apple's down. AMD is down. Palantir's up a little bit. IBM's up a little. Did I say Palantir's down? I meant up. Netflix and what is it, Warner Brothers? Netflix is trying to buy, I think it's Warner Brothers, Time Warner. Yeah, I think Netflix is trying to buy Time Warner. That'd be a huge merger. If that, pay attention. Pay attention to Netflix. MasterCard is always going to do fine. Finance sector is doing just fine. Health and technology, not so much. Consumer durables, not so much. Consumer services, well, McDonald's being in there. Everybody's going to eat that trash. That's not going anywhere. Manufacturing's down. Retail trade slightly down. Tech sector is down largely because of all this talk about the AI bubble that does exist and is going to pop at some point. But NVIDIA is leading the charge on this. You just can't keep NVIDIA down because they've got their hands in so much. They've got their hands in AI, obviously, but they also make video cards, which go to the gaming industry, which is very large, and which also goes to the crypto industry, which is very large. You got to have their high dollar video cards to mine Bitcoin. That's the biggest expense when it comes to creating a miner to mine Bitcoin. Oh, and fun fact, do you know how much it costs to mine one Bitcoin in Iran? Any guesses? No? Yeah, less than $2,000. So I don't care if Bitcoin goes down to $10,000. They're still going to be mining the hell out of Bitcoin because of the price. And their government has allowed for that because they're trying to take over the crypto space, which is precisely why, well, one of the reasons why Trump wants us to be the leaders in crypto. And I am 100% for it. Bitcoin is the way. As you can see on the shirt I designed, you can find that in our store on shirts. I got stickers, on hats, everything. That is my design. That is definitely copyrighted. You won't find that design anywhere else. It says, "Dump the dollar, Bitcoin is the way." I also have mugs. Talk to me when the market is open. Bitcoin is the way. I also have a mug that says "Eat shit," along with shirts, for morning people. Got some great stuff in our store. Check it out. But that is me. That is the end of the day for me. I have other things I've got to do. The dog pissed on the carpet. So, y'all got nothing else? I'm out.